Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with The View from Tracy's Point, and we are here to recap another edition of This Is Us, Season 1, Episode 17, which was titled, What Now? So last week I was so upset that the show didn't come on. Then to make matters worse, I received a call at about 2 a.m. in the morning letting me know that one of my beloved aunts, my mother's sister, had passed away. She was a breast cancer survivor for over 20 years, but it returned about 5 years ago, and she put up a good fight. But last week, I guess they say, she won her battle against breast cancer, and so no more pain and suffering for her. So rest in peace, Aunt Mamie. So this week's show opens with scenes of William packing for the trip to Memphis, and then it turns into Randall, being in the room, and he's getting ready to pack things up, and Beth comes in and lets him know that he can wait to do that. But Randall, he seems really lost, and he just feels like he needs to be doing something, and he figures as good a time as any to pack up the room. So then Beth looks over to the bed, and then she sees a card that William has left, and she picks it up, and she tells Randall that he needs to read it. So we move on to Kevin, and he's trying to get the critic from the New York Times to give the show a second chance, because if you remember on the last episode, when he was getting ready to go on stage, he realized that something was wrong with Randall, and then he just ditched the play and left to go see about him. He is with Sophie, and he wants her to sit with his family, but she says, oh hell no, she's not going to do that, that she'll come to the play, she's going to stay in the back, and then when Kevin gets ready to take his bow, she's going to gracefully exit out the door. So then we go back to Randall and Beth, and they're sitting down with the girls, and he is reading the card that he found in William's room. And so William wants the girls to plan his memorial service. Beth starts to rattle off, a list of things that she's already taken care of, but then the girls cut her off and let her know that they got this and don't worry about everything, they're going to put it together. So Toby and Kate are at his hotel room, and she's trying to order 50 rainbow balloons that the girls want, but the person on the phone is being really rude and giving her a hard time. So then she asks for somebody else, and then another person gets on the phone, and then they are a little nicer, but it's still kind of like, what do you need with 50 rainbow balloons? Or I don't know what was going on that conversation, but she finally got the balloons ordered. So in a flashback scene, Jake is at his office, and they are celebrating a co-worker's retirement. And so Miguel is trying to get him to go home and say goodbye to Rebecca, because, she's getting ready to leave to go on her little mini city tour. And so a female co-worker stops Jack and lets him know that, the real party is going to be taking place at a local bar and that he should stop by. So Rebecca is on the phone with his office, and they let her know that Jake had left some time ago. And so he walks in as she's getting ready to hang up, and she's all over him, for taking so long to get home. And so she starts rattling off a to-do list for all things that Jake needs to do, and they hear a horn blowing outside, and it is, I think the guy's name is Ben, and he's there to pick her up, for them to go on the road trip. So then Jack drops the kids off wherever they were supposed to be going, to somebody's house, or I can't remember why they were going to the house. Maybe the people were having something and Jack was supposed to drop them off and then go back and pick them up. But then Kate stays in the car, to confront her dad about not going with Rebecca, to her show. And so she tells him, not to sit at home all alone and acting sad, and missing her mom. So Jack is home, eating Chinese food when he decides to go to the after party that they were throwing for the co-worker. And so when he gets there, the female co-worker offers him a drink, and Jack is not supposed to be drinking, but he accepts it. And so in another flashback scene later on in the show, Jack is talking with the female co-worker, and her name is Heather. And so they're talking about Rebecca going on the tour. And so she tells Jack that she can tell that something is wrong. And, she places her hand on his lap or on his thigh or something. And so Jack immediately, moves her hand and lets her know that it's not happening because he is a happily married man and that she's being really inappropriate and that she's about to embarrass the both of them in front of their co-workers. So back in the present, Randall gets a call from Jesse and he lets him know that he and William had said their goodbyes before he left, and so he shares that he let everyone at their AA meeting know that William had passed away, and he shares a story about there was this young athlete that was in the AA meeting, and I guess the guy had an issue with the two of them being gay, but William, went ahead and befriended the guy anyway, and, and let him know that regardless of how the guy felt about their relationship, that wasn't going to stop him from, extending, his friendship to the guy. And then they ended up becoming friends. So after they hang up the phone, the mailman rings the doorbell. So when Randall goes to open the door, the guy tells him that, he was getting ready to put the mail in the mailbox when he saw that there was this package sitting by the door. So he brings the package in and it's a crate full of pears. And so Randall's looking at the pears like, what the hell, right? So then the guy says, I don't mean to be nosy, but I haven't seen William in a while. And so, through the conversation that him and Randall have, he shares with Randall that him and William used to talk all the time and that he was really well liked, by him and the neighbors. And so Randall is kind of like, okay, I don't even have a relationship with the mailman, so how, do all these people know William? And so the guy, he was crying and he, was just basically saying what a nice person William was, and he tells Randall that he'll let the rest of the neighbors know that William has passed away. So Beth came downstairs and she's asking about the pears, and so Randall lets her know that the pears came from his job, and so she seems really annoyed that this was the best that they could do. And so she goes back upstairs and Randall opens the card and it's like a really impersonal card, it's printed on a computer, and then it just says the team, but it wasn't even handwritten, it was printed out on the computer as well. So we go back to Kevin and he decides to go see Novak, who was the play critic from the New York Times, that he wanted to come to the play. And so, he's pretty much begging the guy to come back to the play and give them a second chance. But for some reason, he doesn't want to tell the guy what happened, that his brother was in crises and that he eventually lost his dad and, had a nervous breakdown and stuff. He's just trying to keep it professional, like he didn't choke, it was something serious that happened and that's a great play and he really wants him to come back. But the guy tells him that, he believes that he did choke and that he's just a washed up actor with no talent. Ouch. Okay. So it's the following day and everyone shows up at Randall's for the funeral, and also the opening of the play is later on that night. So the youngest daughter, I can't remember if it's Annie or Tess, but she sets off a confetti, one of those things they usually have them for sale on New Year's Eve. And when you pull the thing off, it pops up all this confetti. So Kate accidentally lets go of her balloons because when her and Toby walked up, I think they each had 25 of the rainbow balloons. And so when the pop went off, Kate let her balloons go. And Rebecca and Miguel are there. And so Rebecca is really nervous because she doesn't think Randall has forgiven her for keeping the whole William secret. And that, he's probably upset that he didn't have enough time to spend with William. But Miguel is letting her know that, she's overreacting and that, she needs to talk to Randall and that Randall, is going to be okay and he's not angry with her. So the little service was really cute. The girls did a good job. They planned a day in the life of William, which starts off with breakfast and a cup of pills that Beth quickly lets everyone know are just M&Ms in a cup. But they had like the little plastic cup with however many pills that William took every day, and then everybody's name was you know, in front of one of the cups, and everybody was thinking like, well, what the hell, we gotta take these pills, you know. But Beth, you know, let them know they didn't have anything to worry about. So then Beth goes into the kitchen, and when Randall walks up, you know, she's looking in the cabinet and she has all of William's medicine lined up. And so she tells him that while they were in Memphis, that she refilled all of William's prescriptions because she didn't know that he wasn't coming back. And so she then points out that everyone had a chance to say goodbye to William but her, and that, you know, she loved William also. And so Randall is kind of like standing there like, oh my God, I didn't even consider, you know, how this could be impacting Beth. So when they go back into the living room, they're drinking this blue Hawaiian Kool-Aid. And so Kevin, I think it was, asked like, okay, well, what's up with the blue Hawaiian Kool-Aid? And Beth said that she thinks that there was a misunderstanding and that the girls may have overheard her saying that blue Hawaiian was William's favorite. Well, it turns out that his favorite blue Hawaiian was actually a form of weed, but she didn't have the heart, you know, to tell the girls. So Randall goes, you know, to the mic, which was really like one of those little toy karaoke machines for kids. And so he says that he needs to go off the grid for a second. And he tells them that William would want Beth to say a few words, you know, because she was in this with him as well. So Beth gets up to the mic and she says that she really doesn't know what to say, and that, you know, she's pretty mad at William for leaving and not, you know, letting her know. And so she went on to say that, you know, he was her friend, and just pretty much sharing how he impacted her life, you know, even though he was only there for about 3 months. It was a very emotional speech and points out the little things that mean so much to us about a person that we don't really think about when they're alive, but once they're gone, you know, they come, all these memories come rushing into our thoughts, and we think, wow, you know, this is what I really loved about, you know, this person. And so I thought that was just like really touching. While Beth was talking, Kate became very emotional, and so she gets up and rushes out the house. And so Toby is trying to follow her, but she's begging him like, please don't come out here, just let me have this moment, go back in the house and leave me alone. And so then Randall ends up coming out, and so she breaks down, you know, telling him that she really feels bad for him because this was the second time he's had to experience losing a dad. And I was just like, yeah, that's true. Like, he had to deal with the loss of Jack, you know, and now he's dealing with the loss of William. So I don't know if it's easier the second time around or if it was harder, you know, with William because he only known him for a few months. But that was just like a really powerful point that she brought up. So Randall shares with Kate that he had a dream the night before that Jack and William had met each other and that they were sitting down talking, and then Jack shared this story that I guess he was known for telling his kids, and he shared the story with William and that the two of them were laughing. Then he stopped and told Kate that she really needs to appreciate Toby more and open up to him about what happened with their dad. Back inside, the girls let everyone know that they are about to go on a walk like William did every morning. And everyone, you know, had these party hats, but they wanted Randall to wear William's hat. So on the walk, Kevin says that he has to leave to go to the theater, and Kate tells Toby that she would tell him more about Jack's death after the play that night. Rebecca finally talks to Randall and lets him know that Jack tried to teach him the basics about everything, but, you know, all of his compassion and his hard, you know, work ethic and everything, that he actually got that from William, and that's something that nobody can ever take away from him. So she apologizes for keeping William away, saying when she first met him, you know, he was too strung out on drugs for her to expose Randall to him. And then 10 years later, when he was doing much better, she was always afraid to tell Randall the truth, and that the longer she waited, the bigger the deception grew in her mind, and the harder that it was to tell him that his dad, you know, she knew who his dad was and that she knew where he was at. So then Randall says that, you know, for her not to worry because him and William had enough time to let each other know that they love the other. And he tells Rebecca, you know, he forgives her and loves her too. At the theater, Sophie shows up to let Kevin know she's there and to give him a crutch for when he breaks his leg. And it was corny but cute. So I hope those two can work it out. So the theater is packed with the exception of one noticeably empty seat. It was the seat that Kevin had saved for the guy from the New York Times, and he didn't bother to show up. But as promised, Sophie snuck out, so that the family wouldn't see her, the minute that the play ended. And Randall lets Kevin know that there is now a man where the Manny used to be. And so on their way out, Randall tells Beth that he has to stop by the office. It's 10 p.m., but he tells her that they will all be there burning the midnight oil, working on whatever presentation they need to get done. So Randall walks in and lets his boss know that, he was a little bit upset, because he helped grow the company from 6 employees to the 60 that they have now. And then he reminds the boss that he was allergic to pears, and he tells him that, I'm allergic to pears because when I had my first interview, I guess he had some kind of allergic reaction to some dish that had pears in it. And so he also calls him out, for sending him, the pears, and for including the Tyke card, that was printed out on a computer, and that was very impersonal, and that they didn't even have the decency to have everybody in the room sign the card, that they just, had it typed on the computer, the team. So after he finishes his rant, Randall says that he quits, and he closes with one of my favorite lines, which is, "I came, I saw, I conquered." And so as he's walking out, the boss asks him, well, what are you going to do now? And Randall pretty much let him know that he'll be doing whatever the hell he wants to do, but it won't include coming to that office every day and working his butt off for people that don't appreciate him. Sophie was waiting for Kevin, and he lets her know that although Novak was a no-show, it put everything into perspective, and he has a lot to be grateful for. The two go back to, I couldn't figure out if it was her place, if it was his place, or if it was a room in Randall and Beth's house that they were in, but anyway, they ended up in bed making love. Kevin is awakened when his phone begins to vibrate, and when he answers the phone, it is Ron Howard. So it was like Ron Howard as in Opie Taylor from the Andy Griffith Show. It was Ron Howard, who grew up to be the famous producer Ron Howard, from the show Happy Days Ron Howard. I was like, okay, go ahead on, Kevin. So he's basically letting Kevin know that his daughter made him take him to the play, and that he was very impressed, and that he wants Kevin to start in a movie that he is about to produce, and that he wants to send the script over to Kevin. So it didn't matter that the reviewer didn't show up, because somebody bigger and more powerful than the reviewer was there, and he is about to give Kevin one hell of a chance. So Beth walks into the house, and she goes through the mail, and there was a postcard from William that he sent from Memphis telling her goodbye. So Beth finally got her true closure, and she, had a goodbye from William like everybody else. So it made her feel special and much better. And in a flashback scene, Jack is leaving the bar, and he calls the whose ever house the kids were at, and he asks if the kids can stay the night, and the lady says that it's no problem, that he can come in the morning. Then the scene goes to Kate and Toby, and she tells him that the reason it is so hard for her to talk about Jack is because she was the cause of his death. And I was like, what the hell? What is that all about? So then we go back to a flashback scene. And Jack, before he hangs up the phone with the lady whose house the kids were at, he asks if he can talk to Kate. And when Kate gets on the phone, he tells her that, she was right about everything, and that he was going to go and make things right with Rebecca. And so the show ends with him driving off. So I'm assuming that he is going to wherever it was that she was going to do her concert. And we know that he had been drinking at the club, so I can only assume that there was a tragic accident or something, but we'll see. Because I think the season finale is next week. Yeah, because I think it was 18 episodes, and this was episode 17. So next week we find out what happened to Jack. So let me know what you guys thought about this week's episode. What did you think about Beth? Because I thought that was so touching, the fact that, Randall, even though he depended on Beth to help him take care of William, I think he kind of took for granted what all she was doing. And then she kind of felt like she had to mourn his death on his own because she didn't have that same relationship as everybody else did. So let me know what you think about that down in the comments. Go ahead and rate the video, share it if you thought it was a good recap, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until next time, you guys, take care. Bye-bye.